Cast. Yep, it's 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's good to be back with you all. Thank you for everyone that's joining me right now. For all my live viewers on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for joining the Murphy's Law podcast. I really appreciate you. And if you get your podcast from any of the multiple platforms that you can, we're talking about Spotify, we're talking about iHeartRadio, we're talking about Apple Podcasts, all the different places that you can get your podcast. If you're tuning in to the Murphy's Law podcast, I appreciate you and I thank you for your support. It matters greatly to me. Of course, you know, the Murphy's Law podcast is brought to you on behalf of BOJ Clothing, faith-based clothing. Go to bojclothing.com and check out all the different hoodies and shirts and things that is over there. All right. So good night to you all. How are you all doing? It's Wednesday. It's the first day of the month of May. It's a new month, right? That's exciting. So how are you all doing? I pray everybody is great. I pray you're being loved. And we have an amazing conversation discussion to have tonight. And then, of course, I will leave you with a story that I believe is going to help you and bless you. Let me know for my live viewers where you're joining me from. Let me know where in the world you are. Of course, here in South Florida, it's nighttime, but it could be 5 o'clock somewhere where you are. It could be afternoon, it could be morning, it could be evening. So, good morning, afternoon, evening, good night to everybody. Well, tonight's topic, we're talking about forgiveness. Forgive and be forgiven. And right out, I just want to say to you that forgiveness is important. Why? First of all, Jesus told us to forgive everybody, right? And to continue forgiving everybody. But why did Jesus say this? That's what I want to get into tonight. So, will you please share this YouTube, share this on Facebook, please, please, please. And if you've not subscribed already to our YouTube page, Murphy's www.youtube.com/ at Murphy's Law Podcast. Of course, we are on Instagram as well, Murphy's Law _podcast. Follow us. We got amazing topics. And of course, there are more guests that's going to join this season. But let's talk about forgiveness, the importance of forgiveness, the importance of forgiving, and then how to accept or receive forgiveness. That's a challenge for some people as well. It's one thing to be able to forgive someone, but there are many people who they don't know how to receive forgiveness because they're so used to being abused, they're so used to being treated wrongly or being manipulated that what other people have called forgiveness has really been revenge and other things. And so we'll talk about that some more here over the next few minutes. But the first thing I want to highlight, really from a very practical standpoint, is forgiveness is for you primarily more than it is for the person that you are forgiving. Now, forgiveness is going to help everybody. It's going to help the relationship. It's going to help family. It's going to help our society. It's going to do all of that. But for you as the person, however, for you as an individual, it's primarily forgiveness primarily works in your benefit. It comes to your aid more for you than the person that you're forgiving. And I'll tell you just how. Now, I want you to listen to this statistic. Okay. This is a medical statistic. Do you know that only 5 to 10% of diseases or illnesses are caused by genetic reasons, meaning it came from your mom's side or your dad's side? Only 5 to 10% has a genetic factor or is caused by genetic reasons, bloodline. So that leaves us with 90 to 95% of diseases, of illnesses happen because of toxic stress, stress related issues. That what happens is when the body experiences those negative emotions, your body releases stress hormones. And those stress hormones, they, number one, they can severely deplete your immune system. Then, secondly, it messes with your cardiovascular system, which is your heart, and blood getting to different areas of your body. And then it greatly affects you neurologically, your neurological system. That has to do with your brain function. So you have your immune system, you have your heart, cardiovascular, and then you got your brain, you got the mind area. And so 90 to 95% of all diseases, we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about all different types of cancer, heart issues. It's not even genetically or biologically pushed or instigated. It comes from having negative emotions. Well, what does that have to do with forgiveness? Well, when we choose to not forgive, or when we choose to stay in a position where we are in unforgiveness, we are holding on to the offense. And to be offended and to take offense continuously for something that happened yesterday, 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that puts us in a position to be connected with whatever negative emotion there may be. You, it could be a multiplicity of emotions, such as hostility, anger, you want to get revenge or vengeance, bitterness, and all of these emotions lead into other problems. So the minute I say I'm not going to forgive you, that's the minute that I'm holding on to offense, and I'm either going to be hostile towards you, I'm going to be in a mode of vengeance, or I want to get back at you, I'm going to be angry towards you. All of these things, that when your body is in this mode, it releases naturally, it releases these stress hormones that are not good for you. Cortisol is what the stress hormone is called. And I want you to research all of what I'm telling you. Go back, look it up, so you can verify it for yourselves if you need to or if you want to, so that you know that here in the Murphy's Law podcast, we're not just throwing out numbers and we're not just giving opinion, but there's revelation and there's truth that's coming. There are many people that are living right now today, and they don't even realize that a lot of the cycles that they go through, a lot of the emotional issues that they have, their depression, even, and several other things, illnesses, sicknesses, all are tied to negative emotions, or can be tied rather to negative emotions that are connected to unforgiveness. So, from a very practical place, for your health, for you living healthily, that's a reason alone to give forgiveness, to forgive others. As long as you are staying or choosing not to forgive, you are holding on again to the offense that happened, to the trespass that happened, to whatever somebody said to you or they did. Sometimes it's purposeful or on purpose. Sometimes it wasn't on purpose. Sometimes someone made a mistake. They honestly and integrally didn't mean to hurt you, or didn't mean to violate you, or the friendship, or whatever, the relationship. Some people did. Either way, whichever way it goes, whenever you choose to hold on to that offense and stay in a mode of unforgiveness, You're always causing that event to trigger those emotions that's going to trigger these chemicals being released, these stress hormones that's not beneficial for your body. And it can happen so long, you can do it for so long that you not even realize that that's what's going on. And so you become so acquainted with being angry that you don't even realize you're an angry person. You don't even realize you deal with anger. You become so acquainted with hostility that you don't even realize how hostile you get. And these emotions always, these negative emotions always open the door to so many other things: anxiety, depression, insomnia. You can't sleep. Your brain or your mind is always going. You're having thoughts. You can't concentrate. I mean, there's such a trickle down effect when we choose to not forgive. So, for your health, for your long life, for your longevity, forgiveness, just from that practical standpoint alone, forgiveness is necessary. It's important. You can't afford to not forgive every day, daily, because there's so much that it impacts. Again, I'll say the statistics have proven, this is medical research, that only 5 to 10% of the diseases that we see today are genetically instigated or caused. So many times when you think, oh, I just got that diabetes, or I just got this heart problem, or they got this mental illness, or whatever, it just run in the family. It just, a lot of times, based on the research, majority of the times, it's not having anything to do with passing down through your bloodline. It's just everybody has practiced to hold on to and hoard negative emotions. And so if I learn how to be angry and hostile, and I teach my child how to be angry and hostile, that's not anything that's biological. That's me teaching and learning bad emotions, negative emotions that will deplete me in my immune system, in my heart, and in my brain. And if we could understand and accept that and make a decision, a choice, that's all we have to do is make a choice to forgive. We'll begin to see not only healthier individuals physically, emotionally, but then we'll begin to see healthier friendships. We'll begin to see healthier relationships across the board in every aspect. And it sounds simple, and it really is simple because it's a decision to make, but it can be difficult when you've gone through so much in life, when you've only known certain environments that have only taught you bad emotional habits or bad structure. Then it can become difficult because what to you is truth is really a detriment, is really harm. So again, you can be connected to hostility so long that you don't even realize you're hostile. Anger can become so normal to you that you constantly walk around being angry because you still didn't forgive what they did 10 years ago. And you take on the mindset, or possibly could take on the mindset, I'm not going to forgive you because I'm not going to let anybody else do that to me. So you become defensive. Unforgiveness distorts your view. It distorts your perception. It distorts how you understand. It even distorts how you communicate. Just think about that for a moment. Let that settle in. What you may think to be true is not true. Now, your experiences happened. The violation, it happened. The breakup, it happened. The cheating, it happened. The physical abuse, it happened. Mental abuse, it that happened. But everything that has transpired since then, because you have chosen not to forgive, how you view the world, how your own view of yourself. There's so many people that walk around with low self-esteem. They walk around not seeing the value in who they are because of the abuse that happened, and then choosing now to hold on to the offense, and it replays. And every circumstance that looks similar to what happened 10 years ago, now I'm re-triggered. Now I'm stressed. Now I'm angry. Now I'm hostile. Now I'm Ugh. And all the while, you're breaking down your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. So, of course, you're going to be exhausted all the time. Of course, you can't think straight for more than 5 minutes. Every aspect of your body is weak. All because I'm not going to forgive you. And many times that could be, in some cases, I should say, it could be because an individual feels like, oh, I should have been protected and I wasn't. And that's true. You should have been. The person who gave the abuse, many times I've learned from uh, I'm going to tell you some amazing doctors, psychologists, amazing psychologists. I'm beginning with mine, Dr. T.D. McNutt, but then there are others, Dr. Carolyn Leaf, and so many other psychologists that are reputable and proven, that some of our first violations come from those that we trust and that should protect us. So sometimes that's mom, dad, it could be a sibling, aunt, uncle. In relationship, it could be a husband, wife, from the most trusted source that violation comes. And so when they violate you and you're in your mind and your expectation was they should have protected me, that can put you in a position where you're like, I'll never let this happen again. But do you know how stressful? Do you know how weighty and heavy and burdensome it is to walk around with a guard up and with you confining yourself in a wall, trying to protect yourself? So forgiveness is necessary. It's necessary for your well-being. It's necessary for your worldview. When you are blinded by unforgiveness, you can misread, misjudge every situation. What you hear, how you perceive and receive what you hear is just off, because it's coming through the lens of this offense. And many times we end up harming or hurting or being hostile to the individuals that didn't even hurt us. It's 30 years later. I'm your friend. I'm your husband. I'm your wife. I wasn't the one who did that to you when you were 5, when you were 12, when you were 16. I wasn't the one who did it to you, but I'm suffering for it because you still have not forgiven them. And it's very possible to think back to a circumstance that happened, a traumatic thing that happened, and it not trigger dark emotions or negative emotions in you. I'm a witness. It's happened to me. So forgiveness is important. Another aspect of forgiveness I want to talk about is receiving forgiveness. A lot of people don't know how to be okay with being forgiven. Some people who know how to love properly and understand relationships, when they say, I forgive you, that's just what they mean. I forgive you. But Because there's been so many abuses, because there's been people who said I forgave you, but then they use what happened against you. They throw it in your face. They use it to try and manipulate you. They use it to try and suppress you, to dominate you, to hold you down, to oppress you. That when you genuinely are in the presence of someone that knows how to love you and knows how to forgive, you don't know how to receive that forgiveness. And so every time you're around that person, or every time you think of that person, you still behave as if you have offended them. And so it limits your interaction, it limits your ability to grow the relationship, to be more intimate, depending on the type of relationship, all because you don't know how to accept that this person honestly, truly forgave me. And so you can continue living with emotions of shame, of regret, of being fearful, because you're like, I'm used to people trying to manipulate me. But I want us to get used to, I want us to be okay with accepting the forgiveness that's been given. And someone who forgives you and means that, they're not going to throw it in your face, they're not going to use it against you. Now let's bring some balance to this. If you have done an offense or violated someone consistently in a certain way, they may have to adjust their expectations of you until you prove yourself. And this is a whole other topic that we can talk about on another night. And that's what a lot of people don't like to do. And really, I don't have to prove myself. I ain't proving myself to nobody. But if you violated the standards of our relationship over and over and over and over again, I forgive you, but my expectations will change. And then you have to prove that I can be safe with you again. You have to prove yourself to me. You have to earn my trust, and at the levels that they were before. And that's not somebody holding you down. That's proper relationship ethics. You know what? I've lied to you several times. I've lied to you for 6 months straight. I need to prove that I can tell the truth. And it's going to take me some time. And it can't be dependent on the amount of times I determine. Well, I told you the truth the last 15 times. That's not how it works. I now have to work to regain your trust, to build that security again based on the individual that I offended. So I'm not, I want to make it clear that even though an individual's expectation may have to change because of your consistent offenses, doesn't mean they haven't forgiven you. So let's not run off the cliff with that. However, being forgiven should become a standard. When I say I forgive you, it's over. That's it. You don't have to feel any kind of way around me. You don't have to think, oh well, is she gonna try and get back at me? Is he gonna try and get, no, I forgave you. That's over. So forgiveness, giving it, and being able to receive forgiveness is very, very important. And it's all really us coming out of abuse, not being dominated by the effects of abuse, I'll say. And the effects of abuse can be quite impactful and great. However, we all can come out of it. So make a decision today to forgive. Whatever happened, forgive. And sometimes you may not be able to go to the person and say, I forgive you, because the person you may have lost contact with them. They may have died for whatever reason. But you can make a decision to I'm letting that offense go. I'm not going to let that offense trigger these dark emotions in me anymore. Every time I think about it, I'm hostile. And we all need help. Can I say this? None of us are meant to go through life on our own. What happens is many times the help that God sends, we're not able to recognize that this is the person that God sent to help me. These are the group of people that God has sent to help me heal, to help me recover. So because they don't look like us, because they're not from where we're from, because they might be of a different ethnicity, we miss the help that God sends. I want to encourage you not to miss the help. Don't miss the help. And it can be real easy to get so entrenched in what many people call their truth. Well, this is my truth, that they miss what's happening, what's available to them. So make a decision, please, to forgive others. Yes, the violation happened. No, it shouldn't have happened. They should have protected you. You should have been protected. You shouldn't have had to go through this. However, for your benefit, for your progress, to help you and those that are around you, your family, generations, you may have children to come, you need to forgive. It's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. Unforgiveness is going to cause you to forever damage future relationships. It's going to cause you to forever have difficulty as a coworker, friend, as a sibling, as a wife, as a husband, son, daughter. I mean, you name it. So forgiveness is so important. What kills so many people, and I mean physically kill so many people, is unforgiveness. It looks like it was the diabetes. It looks like it was the cancer. It looks like it was the mental illness. It looks like it was all these things, the heart disease, heart failure. It looks like it was all of those things. In many cases, it was negative emotions connected to unforgiveness. You want to live long? Forgive. And there's nothing wrong with working on your external, meaning there's nothing wrong with eating right. There's nothing wrong with exercising. That's all good. But you can do all that and still be broken down emotionally. You doing all this exercising, all this dieting stuff, you still got high blood pressure. You're still dealing with anxiety. You're still dealing with depression. You're still dealing with a myriad of things, which can be tied to unforgiveness. So forgive, please, and then allow yourself to be forgiven. Be around people that forgive you and mean it. When somebody say they forgive you and they don't throw that stuff in your face, they don't try and throw it back at you, try to manipulate you with it. You want to be around those type of people. Those people love you for real. Those people understand relationship. Those people understand real forgiveness. So here's a standard that God sets. Okay, this is Murphy's Law. Thank you for tuning into the Murphy's Law podcast, where we apply wisdom. Here's the standard that God sets for all of us. Every trespass that we do, he throws it into the sea of forgetfulness. So you can be in a position where you forgive an individual, you don't even remember they did. You did that for real when you did in 2022. You did. Might sound crazy, might sound unfamiliar. It's possible, and it's divine. Okay, I want to tell you a story that I really believe is going to help you. Now, this is a story of mine. This is something that I learned and I went through, and I want it to bless you and help you. And you can tell somebody, you can share this podcast for sure and let them hear this story. My father died in October of 2022, October 10th, 2022. Now, for a lot of my childhood was very turbulent internally. I suppressed a lot. I dealt with a lot of things internally because of things that happened around me in my environment, in my family. My parents got separated. A whole bunch happened. So I dealt with a lot internally. After years of being separated, my parents did come back together and live together. And I was very angry at my dad from I was a little boy. I'm talking about maybe five, somewhere around there. And so I had all these years of anger built up and unforgiveness. Really, I stayed angry at him because I didn't forgive him for a lot of things. I remember one time, and I'll never forget this. He was supposed to, I used to run track and field, and he was supposed to come and bring my spikes, which is running shoes for those that understand about track and field. And he was living in the Bahamas at the time. I was in Jamaica, and he never made it for my race. And I was so angry. And I was so upset. Because number one, I didn't get my spikes. I wanted to run in my spikes on the track in the national stadium. But then he wasn't there to see me. And so I held that against my dad for years. I had unforgiveness in my heart towards my father for years, going into my teenage years. Our relationship, mine and my dad's relationship, was very disconnected. It was very toxic. I shut down. I didn't talk a lot. I didn't say much. I internalized everything. I wasn't going to give any type of emotion. I was just all the way shut down, dealing with a whole bunch of angry teenage boy who definitely didn't forgive his father for things that happened, and moved into my adulthood with these same unforgiving or the same unforgiving attitude. And it became so natural that when I got to my 20, probably 22, 23, 24, I had made a decision. I said, you know what? I'm just going to accept my dad for who he is. Not forgiving him, but I'm going to just accept it. He's just this guy he's just harsh, and he's all of these things, these narratives that was given about my dad. And because I was in this mode of unforgiveness, I always agreed with the narrative. I always saw the negative because my lens was clouded now with unforgiveness. Fast forward to the last couple of years of life, we reconcile. We had a discussion. We threw out all of these. I threw away all of this unforgiveness. I forgive my dad. He's now ill, and so for the last 2 years of his life, I get to care for him. I get to love him, and we really built a strong bond. What I begin to realize is that the things about my dad that were so amazing, I didn't see him because for so long I had all this unforgiveness towards him. So my dad was someone who was so loyal. He was so committed the most committed man I know. He was a man of so much faith, and he believed God in the worst circumstances. And everything he did was with a pure intent, a pure motive. This is the man who he was. But I couldn't see it, I couldn't appreciate it because I just had all this unforgiveness. And now, being 39 and going into 40, and I'm dealing with so many different situations. I'm dealing with so many circumstances in life, so many happenings. He had a music school. I now have a music school, and there's so many questions now that I would have loved to ask him, but I can't. And I had the opportunity all those years that I was holding on to this unforgiveness. And so now I would love to ask my dad and say, hey, how do I build my school? Or what's the next step to take? Or how do I deal with a scheduling? Or dad, what did you do when it's just so many things that now I appreciate. Once the unforgiveness was gone, I was able to see the true nature and the motive and the purity from which he loved us and which he lived his life. He wasn't trying to be this bad, domineering, whatever dad. He wasn't. He loved us. He loved his children. He loved his wife. He loved his family. He was a man of faith. And so now I get to see how much like my dad I am. And I'm so grateful, but I don't get to go back and say and tell him. And so, and that's not his fault, and that's not anybody else's fault. And I don't have any regret about it. I'm not living in regret. I'm wanting to help anybody who's listening to this and will open themselves to understand that unforgiveness, it really doesn't pay at the end of the day. And there's nothing that I can do to bring my dad back. There's nothing I can do to have certain conversations with him again. I only get one biological dad. And all because of unforgiveness. So you don't have to be in a position like I am. Thank God for his grace. I'm not without direction in my life. And I have a spiritual father that is amazing and phenomenal. Thank God I have that. Thank God I have family around me, spiritual and natural family. I have support. It's nothing like your dad. It's nothing like your biological dad. There's no replacing that guy ever. So, whoever it may be, I don't care if it's your sister, I don't care if it's your best friend, I don't care if it's your whoever, man, your mother, your whoever. Let go of this unforgiveness and forgive, because unforgiveness is blinding you from seeing the positives about that individual. None of us are perfect. None of us are without flaw. We're all flawed in one way or another. And we all, if we really love each other and love God, are working to being perfected and to walking upright and circumspectly before God. But we all come with flaws. So let's let go of the unforgiveness and forgive. Take advantage of who you have right now. Take advantage of the people that are in your life, that they are here right now. Why y'all malicing? Why y'all angry? Why y'all not speaking? Why are you guys not in contact? Because of an offense, because of something that happened a year ago, 10 years ago? Fix it, please. Let's love each other. Let's care for each other. And there's so much more that could have happened in my dad and I relationship that didn't. Now, make no mistakes about it. The last 2 years that I got with my dad were so amazing. I learned so much about him, and I'm proud to carry his name. I'm proud. And even now at 39, I'm still being developed in things that he was established in as a man in his character. I'm still being developed. And so I'm proud to be Dalman Murphy's son. I'm proud to be his son. And I miss him dearly. But I thank God for allowing me to have that experience to help you so you don't have to go through it. So forgive and allow yourself to be forgiven. By the way, I don't have a problem with crying. Tears are okay. Crying is okay. So fix it. I love my the support I get from all my family, but you know, Dr. T.D. McNutt, who is my pastor, my apostle, and uh, just an amazing man. He says he misses my dad as well. And thank God for Dr. T.D. McNutt. I'm gonna talk about him some more. You all just don't understand. Stephanie, I'm alive by God's grace and because of God's hand and him working things out how he worked it out. But if it had not been for God, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be here right now. But to the point, forgive and be forgiven. Live life fully with joy, in peace. You don't have to be depressed. You don't have to battle anxiety. You don't have to live in sickness. You don't have to live in hostility. You don't have to be triggered by the offenses. Forgive and be forgiven. I promise you, life is so much clearer when you forgive. The lenses are so bright. The future is so bright. The possibilities are endless when you forgive and when you allow yourself to be forgiven. Thank you so much for tuning into the Murphy's Law podcast. I appreciate every one of you. All I ask is that you talk about it, you tell somebody about it, you share this podcast. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, please do so. YouTube.com/ at Murphy's Law Podcast. We are on Instagram as well, Murphy's Law _podcast, and on Facebook, Facebook.com/M Law Podcast. Thank you. You can get the podcast everywhere: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Get it and tell somebody about it. I so appreciate your support, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But don't forget this: forgive and be forgiven. Good night, everybody. I love all of you.